Pero pues sí, ni pedo, ¿no? Un calache. Que la chistosa. I actually don't know if I have to vi, sí me lo dio, ¿o no? Reach 241 kilometers in any Ferrari. 251. A ver, primero vamos a Ferrari. $296. Ah, pero tiene que ser una especial, ¿no? What is this? Shimano llama Extreme Track Toys, a ver. Extreme Track Toys. 900. Mission R. A ver este. Okay, a ver. Let's tune browser. Ay. Road racing, pues sí, a ver. Ingesu. I'm gonna fucking... I'm gonna lower the difficulty. Está en expert. Bueno, vamos a intentar. Su madre. Oh. Ah, cabrón. VVO RXR. Shit. dealing with this shit. Me gusta Pobrecito. Reward claim. Take off. Okay, so we need to go back to the DeLorean. Shimanoyama. Wait. Winner race from. Oh, okay. So expired. No, not incomplete. Okay. So, I'll do this and then I'll leave this one. Customers. No me va a dejar escoger este, ¿no? Okay. So it has to do this. Retro sports car. I don't even know. ¿Qué es este? Ah, bueno, sí. That's fine. From the 1980s. Vamos a intentar con este. NS6R 1992 380. I actually don't remember if I had more fun in Forza 5. These are kind of boring. Winner race at the Shima in circuit. Oh, puta madre. Entonces no era ese medio. ¿Y cuál es? Highway Circuit, Festival, Sprint, Shima, Harajuku, Circuit, Hush. savannah. Gimme it. Ay, Dios mío, man, bo. Win a race at the Shimano in any car from the 1980s. I did win the race. Why the fuck did I not get this? 4 days, 9 hours. 6 days, 9 hours. No entiendo. Time remaining. 1980s. What the fuck? Circuit. No entiendo, man. Win a race at the Shimano Yama circuit in any car from the 1980s. No sé si se bugueó, qué chingados, bro. Ferrari. que ese sí me lo dieron. Win a race at the Shimano Yama circuit in any car from the 1980s. Shimano Yama circuit. ¿A poco no gané? Chingada madre. ¿Qué pedo? No entiendo. You know? 200. 32. Summer. Win a race. Qué tontería. Qué tontera, man. 9 hours. Win a race. Any car from the 1980s. S cargo. A ver este. Shimano Yama circuit. Pues we're trying again, but I mean ay cabrón. What now? The fuck? Qué pedo, man. Custom race. Win a race. Custom race. 5 laps. Can we? 2 laps. Rewind. Locked camera. No traffic off. '80s. Quién sabe por qué no me dieron el del DeLorean. Al mismo tiempo que este. No sé. MX5. miss my old friend. Hello? Win a race. Any race? ¿Qué pedo? Win a race. No sé. But I'm out. Fucking thing sucks. I wanna play this one. Que tiene un buen canal. Dios mío, man. FC. Está bien, cabrón. Yeah.
EA Sports. It's in the game.
Press the Enter key to start.
Prepárate porque te viene
oficial 2. Ok, ya lo hice aquí. Órale, a ver Start 5. Penalty applied. Y no me dejan moverle, o sí. Creo que sí, ¿no? Sí, aquí está. 8.9 kilometers. Oye, pero, a ver. Asphalt. Um, ¿Qué pedo? ¿Qué pedo, man? ¿Por qué es tan lento esto? Fucking shit. ¿Qué pedo con este delay, man? What?
Direct, gauche 4, droite 6, bonne chance.
Bonne chance. Merci.
5, 4, 3, 2,
1.
1. Top, gauche 4, bref, droite 6, soulage, 50 mètres, droite 1, équerre qui referme, gauche 2, ferme, droite 3, ferme fort, gauche 3, 40 mètres, gauche 3, reste intérieur, droite 3, bref, attention, 40 mètres, gauche 1, caché, droite 1, tard, 40 mètres.
Horrible está esto, güey. What? ¿Por qué está así esto? A ver, primero tengo que limpiar esta mierda. No entiendo por qué. Shit, no sé si ya la cagué porque le puse demasiado alcohol a esto y es piel. No sé si esto va a causar broncas. I hope not. Excuse me. Ok, bueno.
Into a short stage now for this crew. Small margins make for the biggest gains over these shorter distances, so let's see what they can do.
Direct, gauche 4, droite 6, bonne chance. Gauche 4, bref, dans droite 6, soulage, 50 mètres, droite 1, équerre, qui referme, gauche 2, ferme, pour droite 3, ferme fort.
What the fuck? Moza R5 normal relax. Maximum wheel speed 90. 0 interpolation reversal. Reserved full porque estás en handset protection, yes. Game spring. Ay, güey, qué pedo con esto. Game friction. Soft limit. Game force strength. $500. ¿Qué te parece 480? What the fuck? A ver. No sé por qué no se guardó, man. Wheel speed 90. A ver.
Gauche 3, 40 mètres, gauche 3, reste intérieur. Droite 3, bref, attention, 40 mètres, gauche 1, caché. Droite 1, tard. 40 mètres.
Bueno, pues, I mean.
Droite, léger, sur gauche 2, 70 mètres, soulage, droite, léger, long, dans droite 1, îlot qui referme, pour gauche 2, ferme, pour droite 1, îlot, dans gauche 5, bref, 40 mètres, gauche 4, ouvre, ferme, accorde, pour droite 6, 40 mètres, gauche 4, bref, 60 mètres, soulage, droite, léger, 70 mètres, gauche 1, 40 mètres, gauche 3, reste intérieur, 50 mètres, droite 3, îlot qui referme, 60 mètres, gauche 2, tard, îlot, droite 2, ferme fort, dans gauche, léger, droite 2, ferme, gauche 2, bref, dans droite 4, 30 mètres, attention, gauche 6, long, qui referme, 100 mètres, gauche 4, bref, droite 5, dans gauche 4, dans droite 5, bref, droite 6, soulage, 50 mètres, droite, équerre, tard, dans gauche 1, long, 50 mètres, droite, équerre, tard, 70 mètres, gauche 3, ferme fort, droite 1, tard, long, gauche 6, 30 mètres, droite, gauche 2, long, droite 4, bref, soulage, 60 mètres.
No sirve nada de esto, me lleva.
Direct,
Había uno que yo no sé, tocó ver este. Do not save. 70. ¿Qué pedo? ¿Por qué tarda tanto? Game damping. 200, blah 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 blah. 70, 90, 85, 540. Bueno.
gauche 4, droite 6, bonne chance. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top. Gauche 4, bref, droite 6, soulage, 50 mètres, droite 1, équerre qui referme, gauche 2, ferme, droite 3, ferme fort. Gauche 3, 40 mètres. Gauche 3, reste intérieur, droite 3, bref, attention, 40 mètres, gauche 1, caché, droite 1, tard. gauche 5 bref, 40 mètres, gauche 4, long, ferme, pas corde,
Come on.
droite 6, 40 mètres, gauche 4 bref, 60 mètres, soulage, droite léger, 70 mètres, gauche 1, 40 mètres, gauche 3, reste intérieur, 50 mètres, direct, gauche 4, droite 6, bonne chance. Cinq, 4, 3, 2, 1, top, gauche 4, bref, droite 6, soulage, 50 mètres, droite 1, équerre qui referme, gauche 2, ferme, droite 3, ferme fort, gauche 3, 40 mètres, gauche 3, reste intérieur, droite 3, bref, attention, 40 mètres, gauche 1, caché, droite 1, retard. 40 mètres, droite, léger, sur gauche, 2, mi-long. 70 mètres, soulage, droite, léger, long, dans droite 1, mi-long qui referme, et gauche, 2, ferme, pour droite 1, mi-long.
Ok, me gusta esto. Estoy ahí pariendo chayotes. Por cierto. Chueco, ¿no? está puteado.
Direct gauche léger, 60 mètres, bonne chance.
Merci. ¿Por qué chingada madre está eso así, man? Head camera down. Head camera left. No entiendo por qué chingada madre pasa eso, man. A ver. D-pad. Camera left. Wow. Nope, no entiendo.
Cinq, 4, 3, 2, 1, top. Gauche léger, 60 mètres, ciel léger, 80 mètres. Gauche léger, 30 mètres, droite léger, 80 mètres. Soulage, bosse, 90 mètres. Gauche 1, au croisement, 30 mètres. Ciel. Droite 4, traîne. Sur ciel, 80 mètres. Gauche 3, 100 mètres. Croisement droite, F, caché, 30 mètres. Droite 4, corde, 30 mètres. Gauche 3. Droite 2, bref, sur ciel, 100 mètres. Gauche 5, Milan, 30 mètres. Droite 3 sur ciel, 140 mètres. Gauche sur gros jump, 40 mètres, jump. Pour petit jump, 50 mètres. Droite 5, ferme. Sur gauche, 3 sur ciel. Ciel léger. Sur gauche 6. Sur bosse. Pour ciel. Sur ciel, frein, 50 mètres. Croisement, droite 2. Dans gauche 6, 40 mètres. Ciel long, 70 mètres. Gauche léger, 60 mètres. Petit jump. Pour gauche 5, tard, ferme. Sur ciel. Pour droite 6, long. 4, qui referme, 50 mètres. Gauche 5, 40 mètres. Droite 5 sur ciel. 3, qui referme, après croisement. Pour gauche sur jump, 50 mètres. Droite sur ciel à fond, frein, 50 70 mètres. Gauche sur jump, arrivée 90 mètres. Gauche 5 et stop. Ok. Un score de 3 minutes 21,7.
Como que it's not that fun. I don't know why. I'm not having fun on this shit. Shit. ¿Qué dice? Finish in position 10th or higher. Third. Puta, ¿y en qué quedé? Third tiene que hacer 258. A la madre. Mamas.
Direct gauche léger, 60 mètres, bonne chance. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Gauche léger, 60 mètres, top, ciel, léger, 80 mètres. Gauche léger, 30 mètres, droite léger, 80 mètres. Soulage, bosse, 90 mètres. Gauche 1, au croisement, 30 mètres. Ciel, droite 4, très long. Sur ciel, 80 mètres. Gauche 3, 100 mètres. Croisement, droite, équerre, caché, 30 mètres. Droite 4, corde, 30 mètres. Gauche 3. Sur droite, 2, bref, sur ciel, 100 mètres. Gauche 5, élan, 30 mètres. Droite 3, sur ciel, 140 mètres. Gauche sur gros jump, 40 mètres. Jump. Pour petit jump, 50 mètres. Droite 5, ferme. Sur gauche, 3 sur ciel. Ciel léger. Gauche 6. Sur bosse. Au ciel. Sur ciel, fin, 50 mètres. Croisement droite 2. Dans gauche 6, 40 mètres. Ciel long, 70 mètres. Gauche léger, 60 mètres. Petit jump. Pour gauche 5, tard, ferme. Sur ciel. Pour droite 6, court. 4 qui referme, 50 mètres. Gauche 5, 40 mètres. Droite 5 sur ciel. 3 qui referme, après croisement. Pour gauche sur jump, 50 mètres. Droite sur ciel, fond, fin, 50 mètres. Attention, gauche 3, ferme, fond sur ciel, 30 mètres. Droite 3 sur ciel, dans gauche 5, 40 mètres. Droite 5, bref sur ciel, 70 mètres. Gauche 6, droite ferme, 40 mètres. Droite sur gros jump, 90 mètres. Droite léger, 60 mètres. Droite 6 sur ciel, ouvre. Dans gauche sur ciel, 30 mètres. Droite 4, bref. Dans gauche léger, 120 mètres. Jump, 50 mètres. Gauche 5 sur ciel, reste intérieur, 40 mètres. Droite 4 sur ciel, 60 mètres. Gauche sur ciel, 70 mètres. Gauche sur jump, arrivée, 90 mètres. Gauche 5 et stop. Ok. Score de 2 minutes, 57,1.
Apenitas, man. 1 second. 601. Sí, no, a ver, third. Ja, perro. De cagada, man. Live in Finland. inspired. A ver este. 32 kilometers. A la osa. Finish in position 10th or higher. First. A ver qué tal está. I don't think we're gonna win, but you know.
Direct 40 mètres, gauche 1, bonne chance.
Merci. Merci.
Cinq, 4, 3, 2. gauche 6, 5, qui referme, dans droite 4, 70 mètres. Gauche 1, 100 mètres, montée. Gauche 70 mètres, droite 3, bref, dans gauche 4, sur bosse, 30 mètres, ciel. Droite 5, bref, sur ciel, 60 mètres. Soulage, gauche 6, long. 3 qui referme, sur ciel, de suite. Droite 3, dans gauche 1, bref. Gauche 5, 30 mètres. Droite 3 qui referme, sur ciel, 90 mètres. Gauche 5, soulage, 80 mètres. Droite 70 mètres, droite 6, 50 mètres. Gauche 4 sur ciel, ferme, gauche 6, 40 mètres. Attention, droite 6. 4 qui referme. Pour ciel, soulage. Gauche 6, ferme, sur ciel. De suite, gauche 1, 30 mètres. Droite 1, sur ciel, 50 mètres. Croisement droite, ok, caché. 60 mètres, gauche 6, bref, sur bosse. Droite léger, 30 mètres, bosse, en gauche sur ciel, soulage, 40 mètres, gauche 1. 30 mètres, droite sur bosse, 40 mètres, gauche 4, ferme, 30 mètres. Équerre droite. 30 mètres, gauche 5. Bosse, 30 mètres, soulage, petit jump, droite 6. Gauche 4, croisement, droite équerre, sur gauche 3, long, qui referme, 30 mètres. Droite 4, ouvre et ferme, après croisement. Gauche, léger, 120 mètres, soulage. Gauche léger, de suite. Droite 3, 30 mètres, croisement gauche, vers épingle, vers goudron. 120 mètres. Croisement droite 4, vers gravier, pour ciel, 50 mètres, ciel. Gauche, léger sur ciel, très long, soulage. Droite 3, tard, long, sur ciel, gauche 6. Pour ciel, dans gauche 5, 80 mètres. Jump, 90 mètres. Soulage, droite sur ciel, 40 mètres. Gauche 1, ferme. 40 mètres, droite 2, bref, 50 mètres. Gauche 1, tard, pas corde, 30 mètres. Droite 1. Droite 6 sur ciel. Gauche 5, tard, sur ciel, pas corde, sur droite. Bref, 80 mètres. Droite sur ciel, 60 mètres. Gauche 5, cuvette, 30 mètres, ciel, 100 mètres. Droite 6 sur jump. Attention, gauche 6 sur gros jump, 70 mètres, petit jump, 60 mètres. Soulage, ciel, 40 mètres, gauche 2, droite 4, 30 mètres, soulage, gauche léger. Droite léger, croisement, gauche épingle. 50 mètres, droite léger, mi-long, 50 mètres. Gauche 5, sur bosse, 30 mètres, gauche 3, reste intérieur, sur bosse, droite 6 sur ciel, long, 50 mètres. Équerre droite, gauche 3, long, 50 mètres. Droite 4, bref, arrivé, gauche 1 et stop. Ok, un score de 6 minutes, 31,9.
El chopezazo en el cofre. ¿A poco quedé en primera? No te creo. That was Pero, ¿qué nos falta otra? Ah, next stage. Yeah. Uf, ay, casi la zurro. Recommended. Cobblestone.
Directeur.
Directeur. Uy, ¿qué es esto? What the fuck is that? A ver. No sé si habrá sobrevivido ese.
My final surrounded claim is that the body positivity movement is fundamentally disempowering.
You can't go into changing yourself from the expectation that that will make you feel better about anything. And I don't think that our choices to make changes about ourselves reflect more self-love necessarily. They can,
Okay.
I think, if you choose to
Take
take...
notes so I don't
yeah.
interrupt you. Please continue.
If you are choosing to take care of yourself, that comes from something within you that feels good for your body.
Okay.
And so the body positivity movement to me is not inherently about, it's not about taking, diet culture and just saying that is the root of all evil. It amplifies the ways that we have been harmed and feel shame inside. It is a harmful thing that actively causes pain.
My final surrounded
Final.
Share essentially anything. Hedgehogs are not a particularly
Este güey habla muy rápido.
powerful, fast, or flexible species. In fact, compared to many others in their environment, they're fairly slow and weak. But hedgehogs successfully survive using one effective strategy. They curl into a ball, expose their spines, and become difficult to attack. On the opposite end of the spectrum, foxes are a nimble, fast, and adaptable species. For both hunting and defense, they employ a variety of strategies, like hiding, pouncing, scavenging, running, as well as acclimating to various environmental conditions. Neither the fox's nor the hedgehog's strategy is universally right or wrong, better or worse. Both species have and continue to survive. But there's something very interesting about the differences between them. As the ancient Greek poet Archilochus said, the fox knows many things, but the hedgehog knows one big thing. There are several interpretations one could make of this line, but 20th century philosopher Isaiah Berlin used it as a metaphor to define and contrast the two primary ways in which thinkers, writers, and public figures, which we can extend to people more broadly, approach ideas. In his essay, The Hedgehog and the Fox, Berlin argued that one common category of thinkers, which he referred to as hedgehogs, view and treat the world through clear, definable frameworks. These individuals are often very confident about their scopes of understanding and conclusions. Berlin writes, they relate everything to a single central vision, a single universal organizing principle, in terms of which alone all that they are and say has significance. Berlin contrasts hedgehogs with another category of thinkers, which he referred to as foxes, who, on the contrary, view and treat the world as something more nuanced, malleable, and uncertain. These individuals are far less likely to reduce phenomena into singular domains or theories, and are also less likely to be highly confident in their conclusions. Like a fox, they are willing to adapt, either pounce or hide, depending on context. Berlin writes, "They pursue many ends, often unrelated and even contradictory, connected, if at all, only in some de facto way, for some psychological or physiological cause, related to no moral or aesthetic principle." The invasive species of the modern world. A lot has changed since Berlin's essay in 1953. The quantity and impact of thinkers and public figures expressing ideas, theories, advice, and so-called facts hasn't merely increased, but proliferated in modern culture. Now, anyone can publish and share essentially anything online at any time with access to the entire world. We encounter the thoughts and views of hundreds, if not thousands, of ordinary people, experts, crackpots, interesting thinkers, good faith communicators, bad faith communicators, charlatans, artists, marketers, or some combinations thereof, on a daily basis. On one hand, this is remarkable. We have constant access to some of the best and most interesting minds on the planet, and we can engage with others' minds through all sorts of efficient and interesting mediums. We have access to their insights, theories, protocols, advice, and modes of thought on a real-time basis, some of which can be extremely interesting, useful, or even life-changing for both individuals and society at large. But on the other hand, we also have equal access to mediocre, deficient, or malicious minds who share just as many thoughts and views, often with far more conviction and noise. And it can sometimes be hard to tell them apart. As a result of both our psychology and the ways media platforms exploit our psychology, we are very bad at parsing and focusing on good information and good faith communicators. We are more attracted to, and media platforms primarily amplify, confidence, charisma, contrarianism, resonance, fear-mongering, simplicity, certainty, and so on, none of which on their own are markers of high-quality information or good faith communication. In fact, they are often indicators of the opposite. The expert economy. Most of us strive to see and understand the world as clearly and simply as possible. We yearn for clear answers and explanations because, deep down, we know, or perhaps feel, that life and reality are devoid of them. In our stubborn need for existential orientation, we attempt to map words and concepts onto the world, trying to create a perfect overlay between thought and reality. But this is like taking a literal physical map as the equivalent for the territory it symbolizes. The map is very useful, but it is also very incomplete. It cannot show all the objects, people, dimensions, weather, or events existing and shifting in each moment within the territory, and you cannot traverse the map itself. We all feel the unsettling dissonance between our perception of reality and the limited control and understanding we have of it. We have our maps, but they don't show us why or how we should go anywhere and what will happen if we do, what's actually around the corner. As a response to this, instead of acknowledging and embracing the dissonant ambiguity inherent to existence, we often strive for clearer maps, origins to blame our circumstances on, clear routes to escape our circumstances, clear destinations to hope for. As a result, there is a massive, ever-expanding economy built not so much around the actual clarity of maps, but the marketing and salability of the clarity of maps. This is because, as a species, we really can't understand things much more clearly. That is, we can't comprehensively understand or predict much about reality, the variability and complexity of people's lives, economies, societies, the metaphysical underpinnings of it all, and so on. But we can continue to sustain and sell the hopeful illusion that we can. Hedgehogs are not a particularly powerful, fast, or flexible species. In fact, compared to many others in their environment, they're fairly slow and weak. But hedgehogs successfully survive using one effective strategy. They curl into a ball, expose their spines, and become difficult to attack. On the opposite end of the spectrum, Foxes are a nimble, fast, and adaptable species. For both hunting and defense, they employ a variety of strategies, like hiding, pouncing, scavenging, running, as well as acclimating to various environmental conditions. Neither the fox's nor the hedgehog's strategy is universally right or wrong, better or worse. Both species have and continue to survive. But there's something very interesting about the differences between them. As the ancient Greek poet Archilochus said, "The fox knows many things, but the hedgehog knows one big thing." There are several interpretations one could make of this line, but 20th century philosopher Isaiah Berlin used it as a metaphor to define and contrast the two primary ways in which thinkers, writers, and public figures, which we can extend to people more broadly, approach ideas. In his essay, The Hedgehog and the Fox, Berlin argued that one common category of thinkers, which he referred to as hedgehogs, view and treat the world through clear, definable frameworks. These individuals are often very confident about their scopes of understanding and conclusions. Berlin writes, "They relate everything to a single central vision, a single universal organizing principle, in terms of which alone all that they are and say has significance." Berlin contrasts hedgehogs with another category of thinkers, which he referred to as foxes, who, on the contrary, view and treat the world as something more nuanced, malleable, and uncertain. These individuals are far less likely to reduce phenomena into singular domains or theories, and are also less likely to be highly confident in their conclusions. Like a fox, they are willing to adapt, either pounce or hide, depending on context. Berlin writes, "They pursue many ends, often unrelated and even contradictory, connected, if at all, only in some de facto way, for some psychological or physiological cause, related to no moral or aesthetic principle." The invasive species of the modern world. A lot has changed since Berlin's essay in 1953. The quantity and impact of thinkers and public figures expressing ideas, theories, advice, and so-called facts hasn't merely increased, but proliferated in modern culture. Now, anyone can publish and share essentially anything online at any time with access to the entire world. We encounter the thoughts and views of hundreds, if not thousands, of ordinary people, experts, crackpots, interesting thinkers, good faith communicators, bad faith communicators, charlatans, artists, marketers, or some combinations thereof, on a daily basis. On one hand, this is remarkable. We have constant access to some of the best and most interesting minds on the planet, and we can engage with others' minds through all sorts of efficient and interesting mediums. We have access to their insights, theories, protocols, advice, and modes of thought on a real-time basis, some of which can be extremely interesting, useful, or even life-changing for both individuals and society at large. But on the other hand, we also have equal access to mediocre, deficient, or malicious minds who share just as many thoughts and views, often with far more conviction and noise. And it can sometimes be hard to tell them apart. As a result of both our psychology and the ways media platforms exploit our psychology, we are very bad at parsing and focusing on good information and good faith communicators. We are more attracted to, and media platforms primarily amplify, confidence, charisma, contrarianism, resonance, fear-mongering, simplicity, certainty, and so on. None of which on their own are markers of high-quality information or good faith communication. In fact, they are often indicators of the opposite. The expert economy. Most of us strive to see and understand the world as clearly and simply as possible. We yearn for clear answers and explanations because, deep down, we know, or perhaps feel, that life and reality are devoid of them. In our stubborn need for existential orientation, we attempt to map words and concepts onto the world, trying to create a perfect overlay between thought and reality. But this is like taking a literal physical map as the equivalent for the territory it symbolizes. The map is very useful, but it is also very incomplete. It cannot show all the objects, people, dimensions, weather, or events existing and shifting in each moment within the territory, and you cannot traverse the map itself. We all feel the unsettling dissonance between our perception of reality and the limited control and understanding we have of it. We have our maps, but they don't show us why or how we should go anywhere, and what will happen if we do. What's actually around the corner. As a response to this, instead of acknowledging and embracing the dissonant ambiguity inherent to existence, we often strive for clearer maps, origins to blame our circumstances on, clear routes to escape our circumstances, clear destinations to hope for. As a result, there is a massive, ever-expanding economy built not so much around the actual clarity of maps, but the marketing and salability of the clarity of maps. This is because, as a species, we really can't understand things much more clearly. That is, we can't comprehensively understand or predict much about reality, the variability and complexity of people's lives, economies, societies, the metaphysical underpinnings of it all, and so on. But we can continue to sustain and sell the hopeful illusion that we can. Foxes are more often right, but you know of way more hedgehogs. Building on the work of Isaiah Berlin, American political psychologist and author Philip Tetlock spent nearly 2 decades studying 284 experts, including academics, journalists, analysts, and public intellectuals. Almost all the participants in the study had postgraduate education, were publicly recognized, and, on average, had roughly 12 years of work experience in their field. Tetlock and his team collected and tracked 28,000 of their predictions about the world across 18 years, measuring both the accuracy of their predictions and their levels of confidence in them. In the end, across the board, the experts' predictions were barely better than chance. Even the most accurate cluster of experts performed only slightly better than simple, mindless predictive models. Crucially, however, there was a spectrum of different thinking styles and confidence levels exhibited by the experts, ranging from those who were narrow and confident to those who were more open and tentative. Here, Tetlock borrows the fox and hedgehog terms from Berlin to define the 2 primary groups he found in his analysis. Hedgehogs being more confident and likely to extend their views into many domains, and foxes being more open and tentative. Interestingly, Tetlock found there was a clear group that was significantly more accurate in their predictions and self-assessments: foxes. In other words, the group of experts that were the most confident were the least accurate. In fact, they were worse than chance. Tetlock writes, treating the regional forecasting studies as a decathlon between rival strategies of making sense of the world, the foxes consistently edge out the hedgehogs, but enjoy their most decisive victories in long-term exercises inside their domains of expertise. Speaking of overconfidence around information and predictions, one of the noisiest and messiest arenas for this is the mainstream news. This video's sponsor, Ground News, is a platform that provides solutions for these very problems. Information overload, misinformation, political simply left ground.news limited access Vantage plan. The secrets to success. Ironically, what we tend to reward and be attracted to in media and popular discourse is precisely what makes the ideas within them more likely to be fallible. The shows, podcasts, books, and content that confidently claim clear answers to life, clear resolutions to problems, clear origins of suffering, clear predictions or assessments of what's happening or are likely to happen, are more likely to be weaker compared to those who explore ideas with openness, ambiguity, and hesitancy. Tetlock writes, the net result is a double irony, a perversely inverse relationship between prime exhibit indicators of good judgment and the qualities the media prizes in pundits, the tenacity required to prevail in ideological combat, and the quality science prizes in scientists, the tenacity required to reduce superficial complexity to underlying simplicity. Perhaps this still might seem counterintuitive. Individuals with shows, books, podcasts, lots of experience, lots of money, social status, big audiences, or all the above, must know more than the average person, must have greater talents or intellects, must be keen to more secrets and insights, must be special. Maybe, maybe not. It depends. And it depends on a lot. And that's the problem. Firstly, when it comes to personal, self-help, or success-oriented advice, and this should be fairly obvious, what works for some people doesn't mean it will work for everyone. In some cases, it won't work for most, if not all others. Each person is an entirely unique blend of biological and psychological makeups, combined with a unique set of environmental, social, and economic circumstances, all stirred together through an entirely unique sequence of experiences. No one will ever have the same unique concoction of existence as anyone else throughout the entire universe in perpetuity. Each of us alone walk the path of our feet and occupy the space of our heads in every moment. Besides the profound and somewhat unsettling existential implications of this, it is also inexorable within this that each of us will develop unique skills, abilities, and perspectives, or lack thereof. That includes everything from athleticism to articulacy, to wittiness, to thinking styles, to self-discipline, and everything else. Academic and neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky writes, "You cannot decide all the sensory stimuli in your environment, your hormone levels this morning, whether something traumatic happened to you in the past, the socioeconomic status of your parents, your fetal environment, your genes, whether your ancestors were farmers or herders. Let me state this most broadly. We are nothing more or less than the cumulative biological and environmental luck over which we had no control that has brought us to any moment. Furthermore, as a result of who and where we are, we will each uniquely encounter, or not, information, resources, and opportunities at various points within our lifetimes. Even if two people inherently possess the same skills or abilities, but one starts off with certain economic or social advantages, or they happen to have some serendipitous good fortune in their life at an opportune time, this person is almost certainly going to achieve greater levels of success. And if one argues that their ability to encounter opportunities or accumulate resources was a product of their ambition or self-discipline, where then did these propensities for ambition or self-discipline come from? Ultimately, any simple universalized prescription for how to live or become successful are in direct opposition with reality. The one thing we can know. Referring back to Tetlock's study, though the hedgehog experts were wrong more significantly and more often than the foxes were still wrong a lot. They were not much stronger at assessing the world than simple, mindless extrapolation models. And although they were far less extreme in the degree of their confidence levels were still mostly higher than their abilities. The conclusion here is, ironically, clear. Although there is a better, more robust way of thinking and assessing the world, with sufficient time or complexity, we rarely know what we are talking about. We are dramatically worse at understanding and forecasting the world than our feelings of confidence imply. It's very hard to embrace nuance and ambiguity. It's harder to convey and express it, and it's hardest of all to package and sell it. But that is what this world really is. Messy, convoluted, ambiguous, and contradictory. One theory will not resolve the cosmos. One daily routine or mindset will not resolve a life. It's mostly luck, but it's not pointless. In the end, sharing one's insights and assessments, or making observations and predictions, whether by experts, writers, thinkers, or simply those who care, is of course not bad or devoid of value. In many cases, there's a lot of value in it. Firstly, it's genuinely interesting to engage in and hear out different people's perspectives, ideas, and insights, simply for its own sake. And it is all the more interesting and stimulating when it is from individuals who have domain expertise, have had success in life, or simply very articulate or interesting in their ways of thinking. Secondly, there's of course nothing wrong with sharing and seeking knowledge, predictions, or advice, regardless of category or expertise. This is a natural tendency of humankind, and in many cases, when done in earnest, it is a noble and beautiful exchange that points at the heart of our desire to connect and persist through insight and wisdom. Thirdly, there are, of course, real experts and real domains that have real knowledge or advantages. And when information or advice is shared in good faith by an expert about their domain, for those for whom encountering said information would benefit, it will. And lastly, there's of course nothing wrong with being confident, charismatic, clear, or resonant. These qualities certainly do not automatically imply bad faith or bad information, and there's broadly nothing wrong with being like a hedgehog. Even within uncertainty, it can be valuable to push ideas to their limits in order to find their limits, in order to make bold claims or inspire bold change. in order to help orient social or personal directions and narratives. Interestingly, one could say there is something hedgehog-like in reducing the complexity of cognitive styles into two binary categories, hedgehogs and foxes. And yet, it does gesture at something important nonetheless. The ultimate point is this: when we are viewing, reading, or engaging with people and ideas, it's important to remember how easily influenced we are by these factors alone, and how little these factors alone may indicate accuracy or merit. Ultimately, success in life is not expertise over life. Expertise in certain domains is not expertise in other domains, and neither expertise nor success ever equate to anything close to clairvoyance. Nothing grants anyone the ability to grasp the ungraspable and know the unknowable, which, at enough distance in time and space, and enough depth of complexity, everything is. And so, those who say things like, "This is the secret," or "These 12 steps will transform X," or "This is why this happened, and this is what will happen," are perhaps the hedgehogs of this world, with their spines out, using their one strategy to avoid being attacked. And to the contrary, those who say things like, "Perhaps," or "It depends," or "You might consider," or "This is what worked for me," are much more likely to be closer to something real, true, or honest. Maybe, maybe not.
For 4 decades, most psychedelic research was driven underground or out of existence. But then, in 2006, the year of Albert Hofmann's 100th birthday, the tide started to turn.
So for the next few minutes, I'm going to tell you a little bit about why I'm so excited about some research that we've been doing on psilocybin and the experimental mystical experience.
It began with a landmark paper from a psychopharmacologist named Roland Griffiths. Griffiths and his colleagues found that a single dose of psilocybin could produce some of the most meaningful experiences of people's lives.
The study says at 2 months, the volunteers rated the experience as having spiritual significance and sustained positive changes in behavior.
Griffiths developed an interest in psychedelic research through his own profound experiences in meditation. But his eminent sobriety and impeccable credentials helped to restore the field's scientific legitimacy. And since that initial study, psychedelic research has experienced a dramatic rebirth.
Some psychiatrists and researchers are giving psychedelic drugs a second look.
The medical world is taking note of this.
This drug, going back to ancient times, may help treat the mental diseases of our times.
One of the most surprising findings of this new wave of psychedelic research is that unlike most psychiatric medications, psychedelics appear to be effective across a wide variety of mental illnesses. Depression, anxiety, addiction, and OCD have all shown susceptibility to psychedelic treatment. One way of understanding this is through the entropic brain hypothesis. Many different mental illnesses can be thought of as ailments of excessive order. Instead of adversity loosening our beliefs, it leads us to cling to them defensively.
Stuff happens and we're hurt by it, we're injured and we're suffering, but we can find a place, we can do something that steadies us.
In recent work, Robin Carhart Harris has expanded on this idea, proposing a construct called canalization as a general factor of psychopathology. The idea is that the brain can be modeled as a kind of landscape, and learning
Complete better late than never. Yeah. ¿Cómo le hago para...? No sé.
Hedgehogs are not a particularly powerful.
There is a theory of consciousness so disturbing that once you fully understand it, it changes the way that you see every human achievement, every ambition, every distraction, and even your own thoughts. What if consciousness is not humanity's greatest gift, but in fact our greatest evolutionary mistake? What if the very thing that we celebrate as the pinnacle of intelligence is actually a biological catastrophe destined to doom us all? To explain it, first I need to tell you a story. One night, in times long since vanished, man awoke and saw himself. He saw that he was naked under the cosmos, homeless in his own body. Everything opened up before his searching thoughts, wonder upon wonder, terror upon terror, all blossomed in his mind. Then woman awoke too, and said that it was time to go out and kill something. And man took up his bow, fruit of the union between the soul and the hand, and went out under the stars. But when the animals came to their water hole, where he out of habit waited for them, he no longer knew the spring of the tiger in his blood, but instead a great song to the brotherhood of suffering shared by all that lives. That day he came home with empty hands, and when they found him again by the rising of the new moon, he sat dead by the waterhole. This is the beginning of one of the saddest philosophical essays ever written. The Last Messiah, written by Norwegian philosopher Peter Wessel Zapfe, argues that humanity was never meant to become conscious in the way that we are. Evolution, blindly pushing forward without intent or wisdom, accidentally created a creature capable of understanding too much. We became aware of death, of meaninglessness, of isolation, and ultimately, the unbearable fragility of existence itself. Unlike every other animal, we can imagine the future. We can replay the past. We can recognize our own insignificance against the scale of the cosmos. And according to Zapfa, this awareness has completely destroyed us. Most animals live almost entirely in the present moment. A gazelle running from a lion experiences terror, but only while the threat exists. Once the danger disappears, that fear disappears with it. The animal returns to grazing as if nothing happened. It doesn't sit awake at night contemplating its own mortality. It doesn't wonder whether its suffering has meaning. It doesn't fear the inevitability of aging and death decades before either arrive. But humans? We do. Our minds simulate futures that don't yet exist. We imagine humiliation before it happens. We anticipate grief long before loss arrives. We build abstract identities inside of our heads and then spend our entire lives defending them. We are capable of empathy so deep that we can suffer for strangers that we have never even met. A tragedy happening on the other side of the planet can invade our consciousness and alter our emotional state instantly. We can picture billions of lives unfolding simultaneously, each one filled with struggle, loss, fear, and death. Zapfa believed this level of awareness exceeds what a biological organism can bear. He described humanity as a paradox. Nature equipped us with intelligence powerful enough to comprehend reality, but not powerful enough to escape its psychological consequences. Consciousness became an overdeveloped trait, like an evolutionary mutation that grew beyond its useful function. In the same way that certain species evolve features that eventually destroy them, humanity evolved a mind that became too aware for its own survival. Around 400,000 years ago, there lived a colossal creature known as Megaloceros giganteus, the Irish elk. It stood nearly 7 feet tall at the shoulder, with antlers that stretched up to 12 feet across like the branches of a dead forest being fused onto its skull. To encounter one must have felt like witnessing evolution intoxicated by its own power. With a single violent swing of its head, the elk could batter through brush, scatter rivals, and dominate the landscape around it. For thousands of generations, nature rewarded this magnificence. Larger antlers meant greater strength. Greater strength meant survival. The elk became a monument to evolutionary success. But evolution has no sense of restraint. Slowly, over countless generations, the antlers continued growing until the very thing that once made the animal powerful began to cripple it. The forests that once bent beneath its strength became impossible to navigate. Movement slowed. Escape became harder. Survival itself became burdened by the crushing excess attached to its head. Its greatest weapon gradually transformed into its greatest obstacle. Zapfa believed that human consciousness followed the exact same path. At some point, awareness stopped being merely useful and became catastrophic. He described it as a two-sided blade without a hilt, a weapon sharp enough to cut through the fabric of reality itself, but one that is impossible to wield without you bleeding. The more I read The Last Messiah, the more one question began to haunt me. With the Irish elk, the logic is easy to understand. Bigger antlers meant greater dominance. Greater dominance meant better chances at mating. And better chances at mating meant those genes survived and spread. Evolution rewarded excess because, for a time at least, excess worked. But human consciousness feels different. The relationship between consciousness and survival isn't nearly as obvious. If self-awareness burdens us with anxiety, dread, shame, existential terror, and the knowledge of our own death, then why did it evolve at all? Why would nature produce a trait capable of making its own bearer miserable? Why create a mind that can suffer not only from pain, but from the anticipation of pain, the memory of pain, and even the abstract knowledge that pain exists at all? To answer that question, I had to look beyond Zapfa. In similar terms, much like the elk, in smaller doses, consciousness was incredibly useful. The neuroscientist Michael Graziano argues that consciousness may have evolved primarily as a social tool. By seeing other people as conscious beings with thoughts, emotions, fears, desires, humans became capable of forming stable groups. It gave us the ability to imagine what other people were thinking, which created empathy, cooperation, and social cohesion. But consciousness did something even more important than that. It gave humans the ability to imagine things that didn't physically exist. A chimpanzee can recognize members of its troop, but humans could invent entire realities inside of their own minds and then share those realities with thousands, even millions of other people. Stories, myths, gods, nations, ancestors, destiny, honor, morality, history. Suddenly, tribes were no longer held together purely by blood or immediate survival, but by shared imagination. And once that happened, human civilization exploded. A small tribe can survive through instinct and familiarity, but massive civilizations require something stranger. They require millions of people to believe in the same invisible narrative. Look around you, and you realize that almost every human group is held together by stories that people tell each other about themselves. Sometimes we call it religion, sometimes culture, sometimes ideology, nationality, or tradition. But underneath all of them lies the same mechanism: collective imagination. Consciousness allowed human beings to mentally step into worlds that didn't physically exist yet and behave as though they were real. A flag can become a sacred icon. A holy text becomes divine provenance. A border becomes meaningful. Money becomes valuable. Entire societies emerge from shared belief systems held together inside the minds of conscious creatures. In that sense, consciousness became humanity's greatest evolutionary advantage. It allowed us to cooperate at scales no other species could approach. We could organize beyond immediate familial structures because we could collectively believe in abstract ideas. Civilization itself is built on imagined realities powerful enough to coordinate millions of strangers toward common goals. But Zapfa believed this evolutionary advantage came with a devastating cost. Once consciousness became reflective enough to examine itself, humanity encountered a devastating reality. We are temporary creatures trapped in a universe that offers no obvious meaning. Everything we love will one day disappear. Every civilization is doomed to collapse. Every human achievement eventually erodes into dust. Consciousness gave us the ability to recognize this truth, but no ability to emotionally reconcile with it. And this is where Zapfa's theory becomes darker than just ordinary pessimism. He did not believe that humans genuinely confront reality most of the time. He believed that we survive only by suppressing it. One of the biggest mysteries about consciousness is why evolution would ever create something so metabolically expensive. The human brain consumes an enormous
¿Qué pedo? ¿Por qué se le subió la velocidad o qué? What the fuck?
amount of energy, and yet every major leap in human progress has really been about unlocking more energy to fuel it, learning how to farm, learning how to cook, building systems that gave our brains more power, more efficiency, and more room to think. Technology evolves in the exact same way. Every breakthrough device, every leap in computing, AI, or communication ultimately depends on one thing: better energy systems, more power, more efficiency, and smarter ways to deliver it. Because the better we become at powering our technology, the more innovation we unlock. Which is why I'm excited to partner with Anchor, the sponsor of today's episode. Not long ago, Water has been looking at the Active Sardis Phone IQ 5.0. Click the link in the description down below. According to Zapfa, human civilization is essentially a gigantic defense mechanism built to protect us from the full weight of consciousness. Almost every structure in society exists to keep existential panic at a manageable distance. Religion, nationalism, career ambition, entertainment, status, productivity, social media, consumerism, even personal identity all function as psychological barriers shielding us from awareness of death and meaninglessness. Human beings cannot tolerate reality continuously, so we construct systems that narrow consciousness into something survivable. Zapfa identified 4 main defense mechanisms that humans unconsciously use to avoid despair. The first is isolation. This involves suppressing disturbing thoughts entirely. We push mortality, suffering, and existential fear out of awareness so we can function normally. Society depends on this suppression. Imagine trying to work a regular office job while being fully aware every second that you and everyone around you are slowly moving towards death. Imagine trying to enjoy casual conversation while vividly understanding the suffering occurring across the planet at the same moment. Most people instinctively filter these thoughts out because remaining fully conscious of them would be psychologically destabilizing. The second mechanism is anchoring, which Zapfa sometimes called attachment. Humans attach themselves to belief systems, identities, and structures that create a sense of stability. Religion gives cosmic purpose. Nations create a tribal identity. Careers provide direction. Families create emotional grounding. These anchors prevent the mind from drifting into existential chaos. Without them, consciousness becomes unbearable. The third mechanism is diversion. Humans constantly distract themselves to avoid confronting existence directly. That could be work, entertainment, goals, social drama, endless scrolling, productivity culture, celebrity obsession, consumption, all noise. Modern civilizations create a non-stop stream of stimulation because silence leaves room for existential awareness to emerge. And finally, there's sublimation, which is basically what I have built my entire career on. The transformation of suffering into art, philosophy, literature, or intellectual expression. According to Zapfa, some individuals channel existential terror into creativity instead of suppressing it completely. The artist, the philosopher, or writer stares into the darkness and converts it into something communicable. But even this, all of this, they're still coping mechanisms. Because beneath all of it, according to Zapfa, lies a truth that humanity cannot escape. Consciousness itself is the wound. Think about that hunter that we talked about in the beginning. For millions of years, survival had depended on instinct. Hunger drove the hunt. The spear was raised, the animal would die, and the human would live. But then something changed. The hunter suddenly became conscious in a new way. Instead of seeing prey, he recognized another living being trapped in the same cycle of suffering as himself. He felt what Zapfa described as the brotherhood of suffering shared by all that lives. The boundary between the hunter and the hunted dissolved, and for the first time, empathy overpowered instinct. And so the hunter lowered the weapon. He returned home empty-handed. Eventually he starved, beside the same waterhole where he once would have killed without hesitation. Zapfa saw this as symbolic of the human condition itself. Consciousness has expanded beyond biological usefulness. Evolution has accidentally produced a creature capable of acting against its own survival because it could morally reflect on existence. Just think about it. We are the only animals who can become vegan, choosing self-denial and ethics over instinct and survival. This is what makes human consciousness unique. A lion may hesitate from fear, but not from moral guilt. A wolf doesn't become a vegan out of compassion for deer. Humans alone can deliberately override biology because we imagine the suffering of others as if it were our own. And while this empathy can appear beautiful, Zapfa believed it came with devastating consequences. The deeper consciousness becomes, the harder it is to participate naturally in life. Every action acquires a moral weight to it. Every pleasure becomes shadowed by awareness of suffering somewhere else. Every human victory exists beside another person's tragedy. The more conscious we become, the more psychologically difficult existence itself becomes. According to Zapfa, humans survive only because we have learned to regulate consciousness artificially. We constantly turn awareness up and down depending on what reality is demanding from us. Full consciousness would produce chronic pain, so the mind filters reality into manageable fragments. This filtering happens so automatically that most people never even notice it. Think about how strange everyday life actually is. Human beings wake up each morning knowing with certainty that they will die, and yet we still answer emails, we make coffee, we attend meetings, and we worry about our social status. This isn't because people are irrational, it's because consciousness itself must be constrained for life to continue. A person can't function while continuously aware of their cosmic insignificance, the inevitability of decay, and the suffering woven into existence. So the mind narrows its focus. We concentrate on tasks, routines, ambitions, entertainment, and relationships. We reduce reality into psychologically survivable pieces. Zapfa believed healthy human psychology depends on this suppression. In fact, he argued that what society calls normal behavior is actually a carefully maintained state of partial unconsciousness. Mental stability requires selectively ignoring vast portions of reality. The individual who becomes too aware risks paralysis, despair, or detachment from ordinary life. This creates an unsettling possibility. Perhaps civilization itself is built upon controlled delusion. Zapfa believed human beings possess an extraordinary capacity for empathy, but also an equally extraordinary ability to shut that empathy off. Without this compartmentalization, society couldn't function. A soldier can't fight effectively while fully experiencing the humanity of the person across from him. A corporation can't endlessly exploit their workers or ecosystems while remaining vividly conscious of all the suffering involved. Entire civilizations depend on narrowing the moral field of vision. Humans move between empathy and brutality by selectively regulating awareness. This explains one of the strangest contradictions in human behavior. The same species capable of profound compassion is also capable of genocide, torture, conquest, and cruelty on an unimaginable scale. Zapfa believed these are not contradictions at all. They are consequences of the same consciousness trying to survive itself. When awareness becomes unbearable, humans retreat into our tribal identities and abstractions. These are nationality, ideology, religion, race, politics. These systems simplify reality into categories that allow violence to become psychologically manageable. The individual no longer confronts the full moral weight of their actions because consciousness narrows around the group. And this process begins very early in life. Children quickly learn which existential questions are socially acceptable and which ones are frowned upon. We learn when to laugh, when to stay distracted, and when to suppress our own discomfort. Most conversations avoid the deepest realities entirely. Death remains hidden behind euphemisms. Suffering becomes statistical. Existential fear is medicalized, pathologized, or buried beneath entertainment. Zapfa argued that civilization functions through an unwritten agreement to protect one another from reality. But these protective structures are quite fragile. Sometimes they crack. Moments of crisis, war, isolation, grief, or existential confrontation can suddenly strip away the normal filters that keep consciousness stable. In those moments, people experience something terrifying. The realization that beneath social routines and distractions lies a deeper chaos that civilization is constantly struggling to contain. Zapfa believed one of humanity's most important defense mechanisms is ambition itself. Human beings constantly strive towards goals because yearning prevents confrontation with existential emptiness. We imagine that fulfillment exists somewhere ahead of us. It's a promotion or more money, recognition, love, achievement, purpose. The next milestone becomes psychologically necessary because staying still means facing reality. This is why the actual achievement rarely feels as good as the pursuit. It is the constant movement on the treadmill of life that we truly desire, not the destination. The moment one goal is reached, another immediately replaces it. A person spends years chasing success only to discover the satisfaction fades almost instantly. Then a new ambition appears. We want more status, more wealth, more productivity, more stimulation. Modern society interprets this as motivation or progress. Zapfa interpreted it as escape. He argued that human beings remain psychologically afloat only by keeping consciousness occupied. Think of it like an airplane. It's a massive piece of metal that, by all logic, should not remain suspended in the sky. It stays airborne only through constant forward motion. The moment the engines fail and momentum disappears, gravity immediately pulls it back to the ground in a thunderous collapse. The human mind is not built to rest for long inside the full awareness of existence. Left alone too completely, consciousness begins drifting towards terrifying questions. Questions of death, meaninglessness, isolation, and suffering. The fragile, temporary nature of everything we love. So, to remain psychologically stable, the mind must keep moving. It must stay occupied with goals, ambitions, entertainment, routines, distractions, social drama, work, noise. Forward motion is existential survival. This is why stillness can feel strangely unbearable. Why you often get a lot more depressed when you're lying awake at 2 a.m. in silence. Your defenses are weak, and the mind begins circling existential questions it normally keeps submerged beneath all this activity. According to Zapfa, civilization itself functions like the engines of that airplane. Society generates a continuous stream of distractions to keep consciousness suspended above despair. And modern technology has amplified this mechanism to unprecedented levels. Human attention has become the most valuable economic resource on Earth because these companies know that distraction itself is necessary for survival. Unfortunately, humanity mistakes perpetual stimulation for fulfillment while drifting further away from genuine confrontation with our own existence. Zapfa believed this endless pursuit of distraction becomes most visible among the wealthy and powerful. From the outside, immense wealth appears to promise freedom, happiness, and fulfillment. But if consciousness itself is the problem, then material success can't solve it. It can only delay confrontation with it. A human being can only eat one meal at a time, only sleep in one bed, only occupy one room at any given moment. Beyond a certain point, wealth stops serving practical needs and becomes something psychological instead. It expands the range of possible distraction. The billionaire, the celebrity, the ruler, the powerful executive, what they are truly purchasing isn't power, but insulation from existential awareness. Wealth creates endless opportunities for stimulation. Every new experience temporarily fills that void in our consciousness and keeps despair at a distance. But the effect fades. What once felt extraordinary soon becomes ordinary. The mind recalibrates itself almost immediately, and then satisfaction evaporates. Then stronger distraction becomes necessary. And this creates a constant cycle of escalation. The wealthy often drift towards increasingly extreme experiences because ordinary pleasures lose their power to occupy consciousness. That's why you see a lot of rich and powerful people doing the most depraved things that you can imagine. Zapfa referred to this collapse as something resembling spleen, a state of spiritual exhaustion where distraction no longer functions. The person surrounded by abundance suddenly confronts the terrifying realization that none of it has solved the underlying problem. Modern psychology calls this hedonic adaptation. Human beings consistently return to an emotional baseline regardless of the intense emotions, whether they are negative or positive, that they experience. Extraordinary gains lose their emotional impact over time, and the new reality becomes normal.
Right.
Zapfa recognized this decades earlier and interpreted it as evidence that human desire is fundamentally structured around avoidance rather than fulfillment. He argued that the intensity of yearning matters more than the object being pursued. The chase itself protects consciousness from stillness. A promotion from private to corporal can feel more psychologically significant than advancement from lieutenant to general because desire depends less on objective value and more on maintaining momentum. Human beings constantly create new goals because achieving the final goal would force confrontation with emptiness. If you have nothing to chase, why even bother waking up? For most of human history, survival still required direct engagement with reality. We had to hunt, we explored, we developed craftsmanship, storytelling, ritual, and physical labor. Human beings remained psychologically connected to the world around them because existence demanded our participation. But technology changed this relationship. Modern civilization increasingly strips life of meaningful experiences while replacing them with artificial convenience and passive stimulation. Human beings became spectators rather than participants in their own reality. The more technologically advanced society becomes, the more spiritually disconnected people become from existence itself. He described this as a kind of spiritual unemployment. Our deepest human capacities slowly become unnecessary. Navigation becomes obsolete because machines guide us everywhere. Memory weakens because information is externalized. Physical craftsmanship disappears into automation. Exploration becomes simulation. Even social interaction becomes mediated through screens and algorithms. Each technological advance solves practical problems while simultaneously narrowing opportunities for psychologically meaningful engagement with reality. Zapfa believed this produces an invisible form of impoverishment. The easier life becomes materially, the harder it becomes existentially. And it's strange that Zapfa wrote about this in the 1930s, because while I was reading it, I would have sworn he was talking about the present. I guess this shows that some things really never change. An airplane mapping an unknown landscape may increase efficiency, but it also removes the profound human experience of discovering that landscape through struggle and effort. Convenience steals the intensity from life. Friction disappears, but meaning often disappears with it. Modern society now surrounds people with unprecedented comfort, while rates of anxiety, depression, alienation, and psychological emptiness continue to rise. Zapfa would likely argue that this is not accidental. Human consciousness evolved in conditions of challenge, uncertainty, danger, and direct engagement with the world. Modern civilization replaces those experiences with abstraction, simulation, and distraction. The human mind receives constant stimulation, but very little in the way of existential nourishment. And technology continues moving further in this direction. Today, human beings increasingly form emotional relationships with artificial systems. Social media algorithms simulate social importance. Digital entertainment simulates achievement and adventure. AI companions simulate intimacy and understanding. These experiences produce real emotional consequences despite emerging from fundamentally artificial structures. Person can feel genuine loneliness from being ignored online, genuine validation from digital approval, genuine attachment to a machine that possesses no consciousness whatsoever. Zapfa's theory becomes deeply unsettling in this context because it suggests modern technology may be accelerating humanity's separation from an authentic reality. Instead of confronting existential suffering directly, society creates increasingly sophisticated distractions capable of occupying consciousness indefinitely. In other words, civilization industrializes the suppression mechanisms that Zapfa described. The result is a culture permanently saturated with stimulation but increasingly starved of meaning. People scroll endlessly through entertainment while feeling emotionally numb. They consume infinite information while struggling to feel connected to reality. They maintain hundreds of digital relationships while experiencing profound loneliness. Modern civilization appears hyper-connected from the outside, yet internally fragmented, because according to Zapfa, distraction can suppress existential awareness temporarily, but it cannot resolve it. And the more sophisticated the distractions become, the more fragile people may become when it stops working, because eventually, inevitably, silence returns. As existential pressure increases, civilization adapts by lowering the level of awareness required for daily life. Mass entertainment, endless distraction, anti-intellectualism, and compulsive stimulation all serve the same function. They reduce the intensity of consciousness so individuals can continue functioning inside a fundamentally unbearable reality. He described this as a kind of collective psychological regression. Human beings gradually lose the capacity for deep reflection because reflection itself becomes dangerous. Society rewards productivity over contemplation, speed over depth, stimulation over stillness. The individual who constantly distracts themselves appears healthy and socially integrated. The individual who dwells too long on existence risks isolation and despair. Zapfa argued that suppression is so continuous, so deeply woven into ordinary life, that people mistake it for normalcy itself. And this creates a very strange inversion. What we call mental health may often mean successful adaptation to existential avoidance. The person who functions efficiently inside society is frequently the person most capable of suppressing their own awareness. Meanwhile, moments of existential crisis are treated purely as dysfunction, rather than possible encounters with reality. Of course, Zapfa wasn't romanticizing suffering. He wasn't claiming that despair automatically reveals the truth to us. His argument was more worrisome. Human beings may require illusion to remain psychologically stable at all. The structures protecting consciousness from collapse are not optional luxuries, they are survival mechanisms. Without them, existence itself may become intolerable. One of Zapfa's harshest criticisms was directed at humanity's belief that we are destined to conquer nature. Modern civilization often treats human dominance as evidence of evolutionary superiority. We build cities, we manipulate ecosystems, we engineer technologies, and we have reshaped the planet itself. Humanity behaves as though consciousness has elevated us above the rest of life. Zapfa believed the opposite. He saw human beings as deeply alienated from nature because consciousness severed us from the instinctive harmony that other animals still possess. Animals remain embedded within existence. Humans try to place ourselves outside of it, observing reality from a distance, unable to fully participate in the unconscious flow of life anymore. We became self-aware enough to separate ourselves psychologically from nature itself. And so, humanity attempts to compensate through conquest. We dominate landscapes, extract resources, industrialize ecosystems, and transform the planet according to abstract human desires. But beneath this drive lies something insecure. Human beings seek control because consciousness makes reality feel unstable and threatening. The more
I liked what he said about having to dull my consciousness. No. Or suppress my awareness. Awareness.
The more powerless we feel existentially, the more aggressively we attempt to control the external world. Zappa believed this delusion of conquest only deepens our suffering. Technological progress creates temporary feelings of mastery while simultaneously destroying the natural environments that once grounded human existence psychologically. Civilization expands outward while individuals become increasingly fractured. The modern world often celebrates total control over nature as progress, but Zappa saw something tragic in it. Humanity is trying to conquer nature because it no longer feels like home to us. We are conscious enough to proclaim ourselves as separate from nature, but still biologically dependent on it. We stand between animal instinct and abstract self-awareness, fully belonging to neither. This creates a permanent psychological tension. The more civilization advances, the more disconnected people often become from direct existence itself. Artificial environments replace natural ones. Digital systems replace embodied experience. Human beings increasingly inhabit symbolic worlds constructed by language, ideology, technology, and media, rather than reality as it actually exists. And beneath all of this remains the same unresolved awareness. Death still awaits. Meaning still remains uncertain. Consciousness still cannot fully reconcile itself with existence. Most philosophies and religions treat consciousness as something sacred. Humanity is often described as the awakening of the universe, the highest expression of life, the culmination of evolution. Unsurprisingly, Zappa rejected this entirely. He believed consciousness is closer to a cosmic accident than a divine achievement. Evolution is blind. Mutations emerge without any kind of intention. Humanity simply happened to evolve a form of awareness capable of recognizing suffering far beyond what any organism can comfortably endure. In this sense, consciousness resembles a tragic mutation. Nature produced a creature able to perceive its own fragility too clearly. This is why Zappa's philosophy feels fundamentally different from ordinary pessimism. He was not merely claiming that life contains suffering. Nearly every philosophy acknowledges suffering in some form. Zappa's argument is more radical. The structure of human consciousness itself may be incompatible with psychological peace. We became aware enough to recognize death, chaos, isolation, and impermanence, but still biologically driven to survive as if those truths did not exist. Human beings are pulled in two opposite directions simultaneously. Biology demands an attachment to life. Consciousness reveals that there is nothing solid to attach to. And so existence becomes internally divided. The human mind longs for permanence inside a universe defined by its impermanence. It seeks meaning inside apparent indifference. It craves certainty where none can fully exist. According to Zappa, this tension can never be completely resolved, which leads to the terrifying implications at the center of The Last Messiah. What if humanity's greatest achievements are not signs of transcendence but symptoms of a species struggling to escape awareness itself? Zapfa's theory did not emerge in isolation. It belongs to a long tradition of thinkers who suspected there was something fundamentally tragic about consciousness itself. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer argued that human life is driven by an endless, insatiable force that he called the will. People constantly desire, strive, pursue, and suffer because satisfaction never lasts. Fulfillment immediately dissolves into boredom, and boredom generates new desire. Existence becomes an endless oscillation between craving and dissatisfaction. And Zapfa took this insight further. For Schopenhauer, suffering emerged from desire. For Zapfa, suffering emerged from awareness itself. Consciousness exposes human beings to realities no organism can peacefully integrate. Desire, fear, ambition, and despair are all consequences of a much deeper wound. Buddhism arrives at a strangely similar conclusion through a completely different path. Buddhist philosophy argues that attachment to existence creates suffering because all things are impermanent. The ego clings to stability in a world defined by constant change. Human beings suffer because they resist the transient nature of reality. Zapfa would likely agree, but with one crucial difference. Buddhism generally presents liberation as possible through enlightenment, meditation, detachment, spiritual practice. Suffering can be transcended. Zapfa was far less hopeful. He believed that consciousness itself traps humanity inside of existential contradiction. Even attempts to escape suffering become expressions of consciousness struggling against itself. Modern thinkers like Thomas Metzinger echo aspects of this view. Metzinger argues that evolution produces enormous amounts of unnecessary suffering through blind biological processes. Consciousness didn't emerge because the universe intended wisdom or beauty. It emerged because certain cognitive structures improved survival temporarily. And for the record, survival doesn't care about happiness or peace. Evolution rewards reproduction, adaptation, and persistence. It does not optimize organisms for existential peace. This is why consciousness may feel fundamentally unstable. Human beings inherited ancient survival instincts designed for immediate threats, then layered abstract self-awareness on top of them. The result is a mind capable of imagining infinite futures, replaying past humiliations endlessly, and contemplating cosmic meaninglessness while still responding emotionally like a vulnerable animal, a creature caught between instinct and abstraction. Zapfa imagines a final prophet emerging among humanity, a last messiah who sees existence clearly and fully understands the tragedy of consciousness. Unlike religious messiahs who promise salvation, this figure offers something entirely different. He strips away illusions instead of comforting them. The last messiah looks upon humanity and recognizes that people are trapped inside of a condition that they never chose. A species burdened with awareness too heavy for life to carry peacefully. And so, he delivers his final message. Know yourselves. Be unfruitful and let there be peace on earth after your passing. It is one of the bleakest conclusions in all of philosophy. There is no hope, no escape, and nothing to cling to. Zapfa believed the compassionate response to existence is to simply refuse to perpetuate suffering indefinitely. If consciousness itself creates anguish, then reproducing consciousness becomes ethically questionable. This is why Zapfa is often associated with antinatalism, the belief that bringing new conscious beings into existence imposes suffering unnecessarily. But even here, his philosophy is more tragic than hateful. Zapfa didn't despise humanity. If anything, he viewed human beings with immense sympathy. We are creatures trapped by an evolutionary accident, desperately constructing systems to survive psychologically, while sensing somewhere beneath awareness that none of them fully solve the problem. Human civilization becomes tragic precisely because it is understandable. People distract themselves because consciousness hurts. They pursue status because stillness feels dangerous. They cling to identities because uncertainty terrifies them. They consume endless entertainment because silence reveals too much to us. And perhaps most disturbingly, they often do all of this unconsciously. What makes Zapfa's theory so disturbing is not merely its pessimism. It is the possibility that parts of it already feel true. Most people have experienced moments where the normal structure of life suddenly feels fragile. Maybe late at night, during grief, isolation, or just moments of silence, when distraction temporarily disappears. Careers, social roles, online identities, ambitions, arguments, trends. For a brief second, they all seem strangely theatrical, as though humanity is collectively acting out a play to avoid confronting something deeper. And then the moment passes, the phone lights up and consciousness narrows again. Humanity exists in a constant state of managed distraction, and perhaps that is the most unsettling part of all. Zapfa forces us to consider the possibility that the modern world is not malfunctioning accidentally. The endless entertainment, the compulsive productivity, the addiction to stimulation, the obsession with status, the fear of silence, these may not be cultural mistakes. They may in fact be psychological necessities, because if consciousness truly is an evolutionary excess, then distraction is not weakness, it's survival. Human beings often imagine consciousness as illumination, the moment the universe becomes aware of itself. But Zapfa asks us to consider a darker possibility. What if consciousness is less like enlightenment and more like overexposure? A flame burning too brightly inside a fragile biological organism. A mutation powerful enough to comprehend reality, but too powerful to live comfortably within it. And so humanity continues forward exactly as it always has. Building civilizations, inventing technologies, creating religions, chasing ambition, falling in love, consuming distractions, searching endlessly for any kind of meaning, all the while carrying, somewhere beneath all that noise, the unbearable awareness that one day every thought, every memory, every achievement, and every human being will disappear. And perhaps the strangest part is this. Tomorrow morning, me, you, all of us watching this right now, will wake up and continue living anyway.
Into 4 right long tightens. Into 3 left.
Lol. Meat eaters. Far left.
You know what's weird? If you shave a chimpanzee, the skin underneath is pink, pale pink. Almost human pale pink if you saw it without context. You might mistake it for a sunburned tourist. Same with a gorilla. Same with a bonobo. Same with almost every great ape. The fur is dark. The skin under the fur is light. Now look at your hand. Whatever color it is, brown, beige, pink, olive, dark, light, it does not have a layer of black fur covering it. Your skin is bare. And here's the thing nobody really stops to think about. For every other great ape on Earth, the skin doesn't have to deal with the sun. The fur deals with the sun. The skin just sits underneath, protected, pale, doing nothing. For you, the skin is doing all of it. Every photon of sunlight that hits your arm right now is hitting living tissue. Every UV ray that touches you is touching cells that have to defend themselves on the spot, with no buffer, no shield, no fur. Which raises a question that almost nobody asks. When did human skin become bare? And when it did become bare, what color was it? Because here's the part that's going to bend your brain a little. The first humans to lose their fur did not stay pale underneath. They couldn't. They were standing on the African equator with naked skin under the strongest sun on the planet. They had a choice: evolve some kind of biological sunscreen, fast, or die out. So they evolved one. They turned their skin black, not slowly, not eventually, fast. Within a few 100,000 years of losing the fur, the skin underneath had become rich with melanin, the natural pigment that absorbs UV before it can shred DNA. According to estimates from genetic studies of the MC1R gene, dark human skin was already deeply fixed in the human lineage by about 1.2 million years ago, which means that for the vast majority of the history of our genus, every single human alive anywhere on Earth was dark-skinned. Not most of them, all of them, without exception, for roughly 1 million years. But for 99% of human history, this didn't exist. No pale faces, no freckles, no blondes, no redheads, no light skin anywhere. For nearly the entirety of our existence, every human on this planet looked, broadly speaking, like a modern East African. So why was that the case? Why was dark skin not just common, but mandatory? And what does this say about the human body that nobody is really telling you? The answer is hidden in a stranger story than anything you've heard about skin color before. Let's go. Let's start with the moment our ancestors stopped being furry, because this is the actual beginning of the story, and almost nobody gets taught it in school. For most of mammalian evolution, our ancestors looked like every other primate alive today, covered in hair, pale-skinned underneath, quietly going about their primate business in trees. Then, somewhere between about 1.2 and 2 million years ago, somewhere in Africa, something started changing. The human lineage began losing body hair. Not all of it. We kept the hair on top of our heads, where it shielded us from direct sun. We kept hair around the genitals and armpits for pheromone reasons science is still arguing about. We kept eyebrows, possibly to keep sweat out of our eyes. But across the rest of the body, the dense pelt that had covered our ancestors for millions of years quietly thinned out into the almost invisible fuzz you have on your arms right now. The British biologist Mark Pagel of the University of Reading and his colleague Walter Bodmer published a now classic 2003 paper in the journal Proceedings of the Royal Society B, arguing one of the leading explanations for why this happened: parasites, body lice, ticks, fleas. Pagel and Bodmer argued that the loss of fur was driven, at least partly, by the survival advantage of being harder for parasites to hide on. Sexual selection probably reinforced it. A partner with a clean, parasite-free body was a partner worth choosing. Over hundreds of thousands of years, the hairy ones lost out. The smooth-skinned ones reproduced. The fur went away. But here is where it gets fascinating, because that explanation alone is not enough. Because losing fur opened up something much more important than parasite resistance. it opened up cooling. The human body, the moment it lost its fur, had access to something almost no other mammal on Earth has: a massive distributed full-body sweating system. Humans have between 2 and 5 million eccrine sweat glands spread across the skin. That number, for our body size, is wildly higher than any other mammal. A horse has roughly the same total volume of sweat output as a human, but spread over a much larger body, and not as efficient at cooling. A dog can barely sweat at all and has to pant to cool down. Most mammals, when they overheat, have to stop, find shade, and wait it out. Humans, with bare skin and millions of sweat glands, can dump heat constantly while still moving. We are, as a species, the best evaporative cooling system that has ever evolved in a land animal. Honestly, when you put it that way, the human body sounds like an industrial appliance. Bare skin, millions of microscopic pumps under the surface, a brain that constantly monitors core temperature and tells the system when to release more water. We don't notice it, we just walk around. But every other large mammal on the planet, in the kind of midday heat that humans tolerate easily, would already be lying in the shade, panting itself to death. And this opened up something that no other primate had ever done: endurance. The American evolutionary biologist Daniel Lieberman of Harvard University has built much of his career around this. In his books, including The Story of the Human Body and Exercised, and in famous papers with Dennis Bramble of the University of Utah, Lieberman argues that the human body is, more than anything else, the result of millions of years of selection for endurance running. We are not fast. A trained sprinter cannot outrun almost any large mammal across 100 meters, but we don't need to. Across long distances, in heat, especially under direct sun, humans can outrun every land animal on Earth. Antelope, horses, even dogs. Even with their head start, even with their speed, they overheat. We do not. We just keep going. We can run for 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers, 30 kilometers, while continuously sweating, dumping heat, regulating internal temperature. This is the basis of what anthropologists call persistence hunting. The American anthropologist Louis Liebenberg, who spent decades with the San of the Kalahari Desert, documented this in detail. A San hunter would identify a single antelope. He would start running after it. The antelope would sprint away, leaving him far behind. He would track it. The animal would stop in the shade, panting, dumping heat. The hunter would catch up, walking. The animal would sprint again. Again, the hunter would track it, walking, calm, in the worst heat of the day. After several hours of this, with the antelope unable to cool itself, unable to keep sprinting in the heat, the animal would simply collapse from hyperthermia. The hunter would walk up and end it. This is, by overwhelming consensus, how early humans hunted their largest prey for hundreds of thousands of years. Not with bows, not with spears thrown from a distance, with the gift of a body that could outlast literally anything else under the African sun. We did not invent persistence hunting because we were creative. We invented it because evolution gave us the body to do it. And once you have that body, you cannot help but use it. And the body that did persistence hunting required two things. First, the bare skin. Second, the dark pigment to protect it. Because here is where the package finally clicks together. The moment a primate loses its fur in a tropical environment, the skin underneath has a very serious problem: the sun. Specifically, ultraviolet radiation. Specifically, the UVB rays that penetrate skin and damage DNA on contact. UVB destroys folate, a B vitamin essential to fertility, fetal development, and basic cellular function. Without folate, women miscarry. Babies are born with severe defects. Sperm production collapses. Pale skin under equatorial sun is, in a population of bare-skinned humans, an extinction event waiting to happen. The solution was already sitting inside our cells: melanin, the dark brown pigment produced by skin cells called melanocytes. Melanin absorbs UV radiation. It scatters it. It blocks it before it reaches DNA. The more melanin in your skin, the better the shield. So as our ancestors lost their fur, the genes that produced more melanin became immensely advantageous. The ones who had darker skin survived better. They had more healthy children. Their children had more healthy children. Within a relatively short stretch of evolutionary time, dark skin became the universal default of every bare-skinned human on the African continent. The American anthropologist Nina Jablonski of Penn State University has spent 30 years mapping this story in detail. In 2000, she and her colleague George Chaplin published a landmark paper in the Journal of Human Evolution, showing a near-perfect correlation between native skin pigmentation and the intensity of ultraviolet radiation in the regions where populations lived. The closer to the equator, the darker the skin. The further away, the lighter. The biology is brutal in its clarity. Dark skin is the human factory setting because almost the entire formative history of our species took place in regions where pale skin would have killed us. The genetic evidence is just as clean. Studies of the MC1R gene, which controls melanin production, have shown that the variant for dark skin became fixed in the human lineage at least 1 million years ago, and stayed essentially uniform for hundreds of thousands of years after. There is, in the entire fossil record of Homo erectus and the early Homo sapiens, no evidence anywhere of pale skin in any African population. Every member of our genus, for nearly the entire history of our genus, was dark. The cave painters at Chauvet, dark. The mammoth hunters of the European tundra, dark. The first humans to set foot in Australia, dark. The first humans to set foot in the Americas, dark. The Anatolian farmers before the lighter skin variant arrived, dark. The Cheddar Man of Britain, 10,000 years ago, dark. For the first 99% of our species' existence, no matter where on Earth a human was standing, they were standing in dark skin. The pale version of our species is so recent, it doesn't even register on the long timeline. Now, here is where it gets fascinating, because the story isn't just, we got dark. It's that we got dark precisely because we got naked, and we got naked precisely because we became runners. And we became runners precisely because we became something no other primate has ever become. Humans are the only mammal on Earth that can sweat over its entire body. We are the only mammal that can run in midday equatorial heat for hours. We are the only mammal that can persistence hunt prey larger than itself by simply being more thermoregulatory than the prey. And we are the only primate that has bare, melanin-rich skin as its default condition. These features did not evolve independently. They evolved together as a single, coherent, adaptive package. The human body is, in this view, an endurance machine optimized for the African sun. The bare skin lets the sweat work. The sweat lets the running work. The running lets the hunting work. And the dark skin keeps the entire system from killing itself by destroying its own DNA. Strip out any one of those parts, and the system fails. Put fur back on, and the cooling collapses. Take the melanin away, and the cells get fried. Take the sweat glands away, and the runner overheats. Take the running ability away, and you can't catch the antelope. The whole thing has to function as a unit. This is the part that, for me, completely reframes the entire conversation about skin color. We are used to thinking of skin as one trait among many, sort of independent of everything else. Eye color over here, hair color over there, skin color in another column. But in the deep human story, skin color was never a separate column. It was the keystone in an entire architectural design. The skin held up the sweat held up the running held up the hunting, and the skin only worked if it had the right pigment. Pull the keystone out, and the whole building falls. So why does this story almost never get told this way? Honestly, because for a long time, science was busy. There were other stories to write. Western scientific institutions, for most of the last few centuries, treated dark skin as something to be explained as a deviation from a default, even though, in the long view of human history, dark skin is the default. Pale skin is the deviation. The story usually starts with a sort of unspoken assumption that the natural color of a human is something neutral, often imagined as some kind of olive or beige, and that dark skin and very pale skin are both adaptations away from that center. That's not actually how the science reads. The biology says dark was the original. Everything else is a recent edit. The American anthropologist Rebecca Rogers and her colleagues, in genetic studies in the early 2000s, mapped the MC1R variants across populations and found that the dark-skinned ancestral variant was essentially uniform across the human genus for most of its history, and that the variants enabling lighter skin only appeared after specific populations migrated to high-latitude environments, where folate destruction was less of a threat than vitamin D deficiency. Light skin is, in this view, the response to leaving Africa. Dark skin is the original product. We have spent a couple of centuries treating melanin as a complication. The biology actually treats it as the baseline. Without melanin, there is no human body in the form we actually have. The runner's body, the sweater's body, the bare-skinned body. None of it works without the pigment that made it possible to walk around naked under the equatorial sun in the first place. Now here's the part that lands a little uncomfortably. Because the running is also the part of the human story that almost no modern human actually lives anymore. Most of us in industrial societies will never run down an antelope. Most of us will never sweat for 6 straight hours in noon sun under the open sky. Most of us will never test the system that built us. We sit, we drive, we air condition, we work in artificial light. We rarely use the body the way it was actually designed to be used. The endurance machine is still inside us, but for the vast majority of modern humans, it never gets switched on. The marathon runner today, sweating, lean, cooling efficiently, running for hours, is, biologically, doing exactly what every early Homo sapiens did several times a week for hundreds of thousands of years. We treat it as an extreme sport. To our ancestors, it was just Tuesday. The Kenyan and Ethiopian highland runners who currently dominate world endurance racing are not freaks. They are extremely close, in many ways, to the original body design. East Africa is the geographic homeland of our species, and the bodies that came out of it, with the right melanin, the right sweat glands, the right limb ratios, the right metabolic efficiency, are the bodies the human form has always been optimized for. The fact that modern athletics keeps producing world records, mostly from a relatively small group of East African populations, is not a coincidence or a controversy. It is, in some sense, the original human body, still doing what the original human body was built to do. Not because of any cultural advantage, not because of any training secret, because 2 million years ago, in the heat of an African savanna, the bodies that survived were the ones that ran the best in the sun, with the most efficient sweat and the most melanin. Their descendants kept those features. The rest of us kept some of them, lost some of them, modified some of them. But the prototype was built once, in one place, in one body, with one specific design. And every world-class endurance athlete on the planet is still, on some level, running on that prototype. For more than 1 million years, every single human alive on this planet was dark-skinned. Every Homo erectus, every early Homo sapiens, every late Pleistocene hunter, every cave painter, every fire tender, every persistence hunter, every grandmother, every infant, every newborn, all of them were dark. Not because of any cultural choice, because the biology demanded it. The body had been redesigned over millions of years into a hairless endurance machine. And the only way to keep that machine alive in the sun was to coat the skin in pigment. Dark skin is what made the rest possible. Dark skin is the reason humans can run. Dark skin is the reason humans can hunt under noon sun. Dark skin is the reason our species was able to leave the trees and move out into the open landscape that became, eventually, the home of every culture, every language, every civilization on Earth. The skin came first. The species came second. The story we usually tell ourselves about race and color, the idea that we are different kinds of people who happen to come in different colors, completely inverts the actual sequence of events. We are one kind of animal that evolved one specific original color, and then, in a much more recent, much more local detour, a small minority of us drifted into lighter shades because we walked far enough from the sun to need vitamin D more than we needed UV protection. The dark is the foundation. Everything else is the small, recent flourish on top of the foundation. So next time someone tries to tell you that dark skin is somehow less natural, less original, less default than pale skin, just remember the math. The human body was built around dark skin. The dark skin made the bare skin possible. The bare skin made the sweat possible. The sweat made the running possible. The running made the hunting possible. The hunting made the bigger brain possible. The bigger brain made everything you are doing right now possible. The thing you are using to scroll past this video, the thing you are using to read these words, the thing you are using to be a person, was built on the foundation of dark skin. Without it, there is no human animal. There is just another furry primate sitting in a tree. The species we are, the body we have, the mind we run on, all of it owes its existence to one very specific evolutionary moment, when our ancestors, somewhere in Africa, between 1 and 2 million years ago, lost their fur, stood up, learned to sweat, and turned their skin black so that they could keep walking under the worst sun on Earth. That is who we are. That is what we are. That is the original color of the human story. Everything else came after, and somewhere, deep in the part of every human body, including yours, that still sweats efficiently under stress, that still runs faster the longer it goes, that still tans in the sun, that still produces melanin on demand the moment the UV gets serious, the original is still there. Quiet, patient, holding the whole system together, reminding you every time you step outside on a hot day and your skin starts to glow that the first humans, in the deepest sense, the ones who built the body you live in, were all dark. Every one of them, without exception, for 1 million years.
I got a question for you, Hannah. Tranquility Base. Familiar with the place?
Where they landed.
It's where they landed. They being Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. When they landed on the moon and they became the first humans to walk on a celestial body that's not the Earth, they did it at what we call Tranquility Base. And a lot of crap is still there, like hundreds of things. Bags of their poop, as well as the more obvious ones, like the flag they planted, the lower half of the lander.
Any bags of beard hair, Michael?
They have not confessed to leaving any beard hair on the moon.
I like the idea there's a pegboard that's just all their offshoots. Bags of poop, though. Footprints as well.
The footprints? Now, when they left the moon, they had to use this big propulsive blast to escape its gravity. And that blast probably knocked the American flag over. And we know it did because one of them, I forget who, one of them witnessed the flag being knocked over by their ascent. In subsequent missions to the moon, they planted the flag much further from the lander.
Sure.
And those are still standing.
Okay.
But the flag is still there. It's just on the ground. It's also been probably bleached white because there's no atmosphere at all. So solar radiation on the moon is so much stronger than here.
I mean, even if it was on Earth and you left it outdoors,
even on Earth,
it would be bleached white by now.
Yeah, so they're like white flags of surrender now that America has on the moon, one of which has fallen over. It's a historical place.
Yeah.
And no one's been back. We barely know its status. We've had some satellite photos of it, but they're from high up above the moon. And the stuff on the moon is so small.
You can't really make it out.
Can't even make it out. How close do you think NASA will allow someone to get to it?
Well, I mean, surely they can't stop other people going.
They can't.
Right. What if like the Chinese are like, well, you know what? I don't want there to be a bleached white American flag on the ground. I'm going to change it for a Chinese flag.
Yep, and I'm gonna dance around on Armstrong's footprints and erase them forever.
You're so rude.
Okay. Now here's the thing, and this is the rub of today's episode. They can't stop you. No international law can stop you. That is what this episode is about.
Just 6 left long.
This episode is brought to you by Cancer Research UK.
Scientists have found that cancer risks usually increase with age and size, but some species defy the odds.
For example, deep sea Greenland sharks. They can grow over 6 meters long, weigh more than a small car, and yet live for up to 400 years.
Now, understanding how Greenland sharks' cellular repair and immune systems seem to have managed to keep them cancer-free for centuries, that could open up exciting research pathways.
Essentially, over millions of years, evolution has been running the world's most successful cancer prevention trial. And sometimes breakthroughs can be found in unusual places.
So, by exploring the unexpected, Cancer Research UK scientists are uncovering new ways to tackle over 200 types of cancer. Their work has helped to double survival in the UK over the last 50 years and continues to save and improve lives around the world.
For more information about Cancer Research UK, their research and breakthroughs and how you can support them, visit cancerresearchuk.org/therestiscience. Okay, so Hannah, the strongest rule is that NASA has requested that please no one get within 75 meters of the landing site.
Oh.
That's
Because of the historical significance.
Because of the historical significance.
Because they don't own it.
The United States of America agreed in the Outer Space Treaty of the 70s that, yep, no one owns outer space. It's part of the common heritage of mankind. However, I should clarify, that treaty that they agreed to says that outer space belongs to no nation. But technically, it's not illegal to go there, right? It's illegal for a country to say they own Tranquility Base, but it's not illegal for Hannah Fry to hitch a ride on a private rocket, go up there and vandalize the whole historical location.
Yeah, proved that it wasn't there after all. It was just filmed in a studio.
Yeah, exactly. When it comes to the future of space travel and humans in space, I always find myself going, yeah, colonizing exoplanets, whatever.
Blah, blah.
What about building a park on Mars that preserves its surface and atmosphere as it was before we changed it? Like, I want the preservation of these places. The moon can become this big metropolis, but there should be large interstellar or interplanetary parks.
Right. So instead of a national park, it's like a interplanetary park.
Exactly. That should be agreed upon and set aside so people can enjoy the way the moon was before it got
It's human makeover, right?
I have a question though. I feel quite certain that you can, as like a sort of quite joke Christmas present for somebody, buy like a square foot of the moon.
You can give someone money in exchange for a piece of paper that says you own a piece of the moon, is what you can do.
But you do not own the moon.
You don't own that piece of the moon. There's no authority.
You're saying all those certificates I have on my wall are worthless?
They're probably worthless unless you could get a country, preferably one with a strong military, to accept.
I've got enough of them that I'm technically a lord on the moon.
Do you actually have some? Oh, shoot. That would be cool. I mean, especially if you got them as gifts and it wasn't like you wasted your own money.
I do think I have a star.
A star, like named after you or something? Right, okay.
Which is better in a lot of ways, but just feels worse because it's further away.
Well, my dream is to have a extraterrestrial park named after me. I don't really care where, but I would love for it to be like, hey, this is the like Michael Stevens Lunar Park. You know, be sure to pick up your trash, you know, that kind of thing.
A lot of people just want a bench, you know?
A bench, I just want a park on the moon, okay? I'm a simple guy.
That's too much to ask. Michael enjoyed looking at this moon.
No tombstone. You know what? Give up on my, memorial toilet idea on Earth. A memorial toilet on the moon, however, is still in the running. I still want that. Yeah, my dream is that there will be a day where people can visit the moon, and there's like boardwalks they walk on to walk around Tranquility Base, and they can see the first human footprint on the moon. Now, we're not sure what its state is. Was it damaged by the propulsion from the lander lifting off? We don't know. We haven't gotten close enough, but the mementos that they left, the little plaque that says, you know, hey, humans came here in peace and whatever, that's all still there. I guess I just really love the historicalness of it. In fact, there are only 4 archaeological sites that do not lie within the boundaries of a nation.
Of a nation. Okay, so Tranquility Bay being one.
That's one.
Are there others on the moon?
How you define an archaeological site is pretty vague, but there hasn't been a lot of official action taken for the other Apollo landing sites or other lunar probe landing sites. But the state of California and the state of New Mexico have declared Tranquility Base to be of historical importance to the state.
Okay.
And the only reason Texas hasn't, which they should have a claim too, because Mission Control was in Houston, they actually have in their constitution that they cannot claim a historical section of land unless it's within the boundaries of Texas on Earth. So anyway, the point is, Tranquility Base is a significant archaeological site that's not inside a nation. There are 3 others, and they're all 2 of them are the same kind of thing, and one of them is not.
Oh, okay. I reckon surely the ocean has got to be the source of some of this. I reckon Titanic.
The Titanic wreck?
Okay, there's going to be another wreck then. Something like... Oh, what about where the meteor hit? That wiped
the
out the
Chicxulub
dinosaurs.
crater. No, that's within the boundaries of a nation.
Oh, is it?
At least part of it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But also, that cannot be an archaeological site because, let's define archaeology.
Has to be human.
That's right. Archaeology is the study of the material culture of humans.
Okay.
Now, often we think of archaeology as being prehistoric stuff, like the oldest of the old stuff, a little clay pot or something. But archaeology just means material culture. So there can be an archaeology of the 1970s.
Sure.
Right?
Last week.
Yeah, of last week.
Yeah.
There can be an archaeology of what the heck did I have for breakfast? And you're looking at the fork and the stain on the fork and you're going, yeah, I had the omelet that turned into scrambled eggs. Yeah. See, and you've just done archaeology.
Eggs Royale.
And this isn't me joking. This is really what it is. There's contemporary archaeology where people are studying the material culture and what we can learn of the past from it of things that aren't even that old, of things that are like happening now even.
Okay, all right. So I've got two to get, yeah?
Yeah, so you've got the Titanic and Tranquility Base.
Right, one of them, I think another one has got to be a sort of sunken something.
There's another sunken ship that happens to be sunk outside of the boundaries
Mary
of the nation.
Rose?
I didn't know it.
Go on.
It's the SS Republic, about 100 kilometers off the coast of the U.S. state of Georgia.
Okay.
It was full of gold.
Right.
And I think in the 90s, a private company, managed to get like a third of its gold, which was worth millions. I don't even think it's been resolved yet, but there's some...
Is there still some down there?
There's 2/3 of its gold is still down.
You know what? Forget going to Tranquility Base. I'm going down there.
To the SS Republic.
Yeah.
I can't believe more people aren't trying to go there.
Hello.
The problem is I think that there's a lot of disputes around it, as you would imagine. It's treasure.
They're not going to be looking the whole time, though.
The last one, you're also not going to guess.
Okay, well, wait. Let me try.
Okay.
So is it not in the ocean?
It's not in the ocean.
And it's not on another planet?
Nope.
Including the moon. So it must be, and it's not part of a nation, so it must be Antarctic.
Dang, that's good, yeah.
I reckon maybe Shackleton's ship?
No.
So it must have been some sort of polar explorer.
Not so much explorer, actually.
Not so much explorer. Go on, tell me.
Hector Station. Does that ring a bell?
No.
Hector Station was a very old whale oil factory.
Wow.
Back before petroleum products like completely crushed the market for whale oil, you would catch whales and then you'd have to like squeeze out their juice. And that was great for lamplights and all kinds of things.
And sea shanties.
And yeah. But you can only squeeze out so much. Like if you really want to get your money's worth out of a whale, you gotta boil the whole whale. But transporting a whale back from Antarctica to where you can boil it, very cost prohibitive. So at Hector Station on Desolation Island, that's really the name of it, Desolation Island, Antarctica, they built a big whale boiling factory.
Oh my
And
God.
the tanks are still there, and they look so cool.
Wait, can I
like,
see photos of these?
Look it up. It's like steampunk style, right? It's that era of metal boilers, and they've been abandoned for more than 100 years, and they're all rusted, and it's so middle of nowhere.
Okay, let's whoa! That looks so sci-fi.
It's sci-fi. That's the right word for it. Yeah.
Okay, so it looks like, for those of you who are listening, it looks like the diving suits that people used to wear in the very earliest days of exploring the bottom of the ocean. So you have these gigantic rusted domes. You would just pop a whale in one of those domes and then boil it up?
I think they stored the whale oil in those. I don't know a lot about the whale oil business.
No, me neither. Wow, this is absolutely incredible. Okay, and then there's like sheds that are all falling apart.
It's for that humble and sci-fi. That's the right word for it. Yeah.
Okay, so it looks
so right. It's that era of metal boilers, and they've been abandoned for more than 100 years, and they're all rusted, and it's so middle of nowhere.
Okay, let's look. Whoa, that looks so sci-fi.
It's sci-fi. That's the right word for it. Yeah.
Okay, so it looks like, for those of you who are listening, it looks like the diving suits that people used to wear in the very earliest days of exploring the bottom of the ocean. So you have these gigantic rusted domes. You would just pop a whale in one of those domes and then boil it up?
I think they stored the whale oil in those. I don't know a lot about the whale oil business.
No, me neither. Wow, this is absolutely incredible. Okay, and then there's like sheds that are all falling apart, and inside it looks very much how you would expect a kind of Victorian era whaling station to look. Incredibly weathered, but also just, I don't know, archaic, basically.
Exactly.
In the design.
And unlike a lot of other Victorian era artifacts, this one is really untouched, because no one goes there. No one's built a Pizza Hut and a McDonald's next to it. It was just abandoned, and it's just been there frozen. So it's not being affected by the same kinds of erosion and weather events. I mean, obviously the weather in Antarctica on Desolation Island is not great.
Yeah.
But it's
called Desolation Island,
It's
for
free
goodness sake.
from human intervention.
So no one owns that. No one owns the land of Antarctica.
Yeah, it doesn't belong to any particular nation.
Because no one lives there permanently. You know, I think that there have only ever been, let me see, the number of people born in Antarctica
is 0.
No.
Is it not?
It's not 0.
Some pregnant person went to Antarctica?
By that logic, if you take the American rule of if you're born in this land, you're a citizen of it, it's a country of 4 people.
But Antarctica doesn't have birthright citizenship. It has no citizenship. It's not a nation.
No.
It is like by treaty a heritage site for all mankind for scientific research.
It's 11, by the way.
11 people have been born?
Yeah, and it's not by accident. They were planned geopolitical maneuvers by Argentina and Chile. To strengthen their territorial claims over the island.
Sure, I was gonna say that's a political move. You don't just go there and you're like, oh, I'm kind of pregnant,
whoops,
but like,
where did this come from?
Oh, whoops, I missed the boat back. Guess I'll have to deliver it here and become famous. Yeah, I get it. So
it's true.
And so, in fact, if you'll indulge me, I've got some cool things about archaeology that I want to share, and it's forming a bedrock of where we're going probably in this episode. So when it comes to archaeology, not only is it kind of cool to realize that you can have an archaeology of any time period, but also the definition of an artifact is really neat. How would you define an artifact?
Let me see. I would say it's an object that holds some interest or value.
Yeah, basically. I mean, technically, an artifact is just an object, a physical object that was made or altered by a human.
But then that means everything is an artifact, including the rubbish that you chucked out.
Yeah, that's an artifact for sure. Garbology, it's like a whole emerging field of how to study the behaviors, the diets, and the mindsets of people even just last year as opposed to 20 years ago. You can look through their garbage.
I mean, we had a field notes a little while ago, or maybe coming up, depending on when they release it in the schedule, where we had some garbage of Ice Age humans.
Exactly. And so here's what's actually pretty cool about it. That fossil that you showed, or will show in a future episode, isn't an artifact. It's an eco-fact.
Go on.
Because a human didn't make it. It was grown by the reindeer. And the human maybe altered it, but it was all just evidence of maybe a meal that they had.
So like the bones that you chuck in the bin after your KFC.
Exactly.
Are eco-facts.
Yes, they're called eco-facts or biofacts. Mm-hmm. And those are things that used to be alive that have some kind of significance to human culture.
Have interacted with the human at some point.
Yeah, and the human may not have technologically done anything to them, but the fact that we find a bunch of bones in that location means that this is where they slaughtered the animals, or where they ate, or it's where they dumped their trash. Seeds and pollen, those all show us as well things about the lives of humans. But the humans weren't actively meaning to change these things. But here's where it gets really, really neat. There's also a thing called a geofact.
Go on.
A geofact is a natural rock formation that looks like a human made it, but didn't.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is not something that is geological, that has interacted with humans in some way. This is something that you think might be human linked, but isn't.
Yes.
Are we talking here about for example, the hexagonal rocks that you get, like Giant's Causeway, for instance? where it's like they look so perfectly sculpted that it's really difficult to believe that they occurred by nature.
Yeah, you could call that a geofact. In general, it helps if someone, or if there's even still a continuing debate over whether or not its shape is natural, coincidental, or human-made.
Right.
So, for example, the Venus of Tantan. Look it up.
Okay, hang on.
Now, we've all seen these Venus sculptures. These are some of the oldest artistic creations of representing the human form. Are you looking at it?
This is like Jesus in the toast, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's like Jesus in the toast.
So for those of you who are listening, the Venus of Tantan is a rock, and it could be an artifact or it might be a geofact. There's actually a lot of debate around this, but it's a rock that is shaped somewhat like a person.
Can I give a description?
Please.
Of it? Okay. You've seen those fertility objects that people have crafted tens of thousands of years ago, in particular where they really accentuate like a woman's bust or a woman's hips or a woman's thighs. And there's something of that about this. It's essentially a rock. It's about 6 centimeters tall. It's quite blob shaped, but it looks like it could be just a bad plasticine model of a human. And the things that kind of give away that it's been interacted with is that it when held upright, it almost looks like it's got split into 2 legs. And then there's sort of like a quite flabby butt that hangs over the edge. But I can completely see how turn this another way, and it's just actually a normal rock with a crack in it.
Exactly. It's really hard to tell, and no experts fully agree on whether or not the anthropomorphic shape of that rock is a coincidence or if it's actually a piece of art made that way by an early human. And by early, I mean early. So the Venus of Tantan was a rock found in 1999 in Morocco. And based on the sediments it was found in, it's been dated around 300 to 500,000 years before present.
Wow.
So if it was created by a very early Homo sapien or some other hominid, then that means that it is the oldest by far known representation of a human form or a hominid form. But experts don't know. And I think it almost feels like they might both be right. It could be both. Mm-hmm. It could be a geofact and an artifact, meaning an intelligent creature may have found that and gone, this kind of looks like a person. I'm gonna cut these grooves a bit deeper and add to it so it even looks more like a person.
Right.
But it already did to begin with, and that's why we don't see as many signs of human action as we do, but maybe we see some. So it may have been Earth and humans working together to make a little statue of a person.
Because remind me where we are at this point. So 300,000 years ago, I mean, there's tool use at this point, right?
Yeah, there's fire, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But the actual species Homo sapiens is just beginning.
Right.
So it could have been Homo erectus that found that.
But it's not like they have knives, because they haven't got metal.
No, but they would have had other rocks.
Right.
They could have, scraped on it or whatever.
When it was found, the rock that it was found among, did it belong there, or did it look as though it was in a natural environment, as it were?
That is a beautiful question, because it brings me to the very next kind, the last kind of artifact I want to talk about. The Venus of Tantan did not look like it just kind of naturally wound up there. And so here's a great word, manuport.
Oh, I love it.
Okay? Manuport is like the word manuscript.
Okay.
Manuscript means handwritten. Mm-hmm. Manuport means hand carried.
Love it.
And so a manuport is something that we find that has not been technologically altered or made by humans.
But it's in the wrong place.
Oh,
I love these.
Same with the Venus of Tantan. It might have been that an early hominid, could have been a Homo sapien, saw it, said, that's a cool rock, picked it up, carried it with them, showed it to their friends. Maybe they did some extra scraping to like really accentuate the human form that they saw in it, and then they lost it, and then we found it later. It's at a place, so it's a manuport, but whether or not it's just a manuport or if it's actually an artifact because it was made is an unknown question. But let me bring up an even cooler manuport.
I'm absolutely here for this. You're talking my language.
Okay, so this is cooler.
Sorry, did you say rocks, Michael? Yes, I will have a long conversation about rocks. Thank you.
This is my favorite. It's called the Makapansgat Pebble, and it was discovered in the 1920s, but based on where it was found, it's been dated to nearly 3 million years ago.
What?
Yes.
Wait, is that when it was formed?
No. That's when it was laid on the ground.
Right, because it's found amongst other sediments.
That's right. It's been found amongst other
Yeah.
sediments and